Camilla and William have a complicated relationship. According to author Christopher Anderson, he tolerates her. Camilla has always been a little afraid of William.
This morning, October 4th, 2025, London was rocked by an unprecedented scandal. The private diary of Prince George was leaked, revealing emotional pages about the pressures of a young boy bearing the weight of being the heir to the throne. But the tragedy didn't end there. The real firestorm erupted when reports surfaced that Queen Camilla had mocked Prince William and his son at a family dinner in front of several royals. This incident intensified an already tense atmosphere. While William, furious, vowed to investigate who stole his son's diary, Camilla showed no remorse for her actions. A burning question arose. Who was bold enough to turn a child's diary into a political weapon within the royal family? Is this merely an isolated leak or the opening act of a fierce covert war? London awoke to a gloomy morning, with cold autumn winds sweeping through Trafalgar Square, carrying a sizzling piece of news that shook the kingdom. Newsstands were flooded with sensational headlines, the ink still fresh like blood. The heir to the throne fears the crown. The words, quoted from Prince George's diary, eldest son of Prince William, were laid bare. "I'm afraid of the throne. I don't want to be like Grandpa." From Soho cafes to Westminster offices, the nation buzzed, whispers spreading like wildfire in a dry forest. In the quiet study of Kensington Palace, Prince William stood motionless, clutching a newspaper, his knuckles white as if trying to crush it. His steely blue eyes, usually resolute like granite, were now clouded with anger and indescribable pain. George, his 12-year-old son and pride, was now being scrutinized and mocked by the entire kingdom. The honor of a prince, the future of the throne, had been torn apart overnight. Who had done this? That night, at Clarence House, a family dinner unfolded in an atmosphere as heavy as a dangling blade. Candlelight from a crystal chandelier illuminated red velvet walls, but the warm glow only highlighted the tension among the royals. King Charles III sat at the head of the table, his gaze distant, his frail hands gripping a wine glass as if clinging to the last shred of peace. Queen Camilla, with a smile as sharp as a honed blade, observed everyone like a hawk hunting prey. Kate, the Princess of Wales, sat beside William, her hands clasped tightly under the table, hiding her trembling. At the corner of the table, Prince George, with wide eyes and a pale face, stared at his plate, as if wishing to escape the world's gaze. The air shattered when Camilla, with a voice sweet yet venomous, spoke, looking directly at William. "William, you should raise your son better. A prince afraid of the throne? The boy is weak, just like his father. Not strong enough to bear the crown, are you, George?" The room froze. George looked up, his eyes glistening with tears, his lips trembling. "What? What did you say?" he stammered, his voice faint as a breeze. Kate quickly placed a hand on her son's shoulder, but her eyes blazed with fury. William felt blood rush to his head, his fists clenching under the table. He wanted to leap up, to shout at Camilla that she had no right to humiliate the boy, but Camilla only smirked, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Enough, Camilla!" William roared, his voice trembling with rage. "How dare you speak of my son like that? You have no right." Camilla tilted her head, her smile growing colder. "Right? I'm only speaking the truth, William. If the boy can't handle the pressure, perhaps the throne should go to someone more deserving." Her words were like a dagger, not only piercing William, but also causing George to bow his head, his small shoulders shaking with emotion. Kate hugged her son, whispering comfort. but her glare at Camilla could have set the room ablaze. Charles coughed, attempting to break the suffocating tension. "Enough. We're at dinner." "This can wait," but his voice was feeble, unable to extinguish the growing conflict. Camilla shrugged, sipping her wine as if she'd just delivered a fatal blow and was entirely satisfied. After the dinner ended, William took George to his room, holding the boy tightly. "You're not weak, George," he whispered, his voice low but firm. "You're my son, and I'll find out who did this." George nodded, but his eyes remained sorrowful, as if Camilla's mocking words had carved a deep wound in his heart. That night, in the darkness of Kensington Palace, William stood by a window, gazing at the royal gardens shrouded in mist. The rose bushes, symbols of the monarchy, now seemed to conceal a dark secret. He clenched his fists, his heart burning with resolve. A chilling premonition rose within him. The enemy was not far away. It was right here, in this palace, and it was smiling. In the private drawing room of Clarence House, the firelight danced on Queen Camilla's face, highlighting her thin, razor-sharp smile. Outside the window, thick fog enveloped London, cloaking the ancient towers like a veil hiding dark schemes. Camilla sat in contemplation, holding a cup of Earl Grey tea, the steam curling like the plans forming in her mind. The leak of Prince George's diary was no accident. It was the first move in a carefully orchestrated power play. But she wasn't done yet. Camilla was no fool. She knew the diary's words. "I'm afraid of the throne, I don't want to be like Grandpa," had shaken the kingdom, making Prince William and his son objects of ridicule. But for her, it was just the beginning. Through her trusted allies, she spread rumors like poisoned arrows, subtle yet ruthless, infiltrating the press and the royal council. Prince George was too weak to bear the crown. William, though devoted to his son, lacked the strength to lead the monarchy through turbulent times. Each whisper was a dagger aimed at William's honor. But Camilla's ultimate goal was far greater. She wanted the public to believe the monarchy needed a queen like her, sharp, resolute, and willing to do anything to protect the crown. She stood, walked to the window, plucked a peony from a nearby vase, and crushed it in her hand, her eyes glinting with the hunger of a predator awaiting her moment. The next day at Kensington Palace, Prince William sat in his stifling study, the light from a desk lamp illuminating his face, accentuating the deep lines of anger and worry. Before him was a stack of newspapers, each headline a fresh wound. A weak heir? A shaky monarchy? William's blue eyes burned. But beneath the fire was the pain of a father watching his son be judged by the nation. He realized the rumors weren't just tabloid fodder. They were orchestrated, calculated, part of a dirty war to undermine his family. Someone was trying to shake the kingdom's faith in the air, and William sensed Camilla's invisible hand behind the venomous whispers. He paced the long corridors of Kensington, the royal portraits on the walls seeming to watch him with reproachful eyes. His anger flared like a flame, but William didn't let emotion cloud his judgment. He needed evidence, the truth, to turn the tables. That night, he visited George in his bedroom, where model airplanes and storybooks lay scattered like remnants of a threatened childhood. George sat on his bed, clutching an old teddy bear, his eyes still red from Camilla's cruel mockery at dinner. William knelt, placing a hand on his son's shoulder, his voice low but gentle. "Son, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. The diary. Where did you leave it? How did it go missing?" George hesitated, his lips trembling as if afraid of something. I remember writing in the garden near the big rose bush. I put the diary in my bag, then Charlotte and Louis called me to play. I thought I locked the bag, but maybe I forgot." He bowed his head, his voice choking. "Dad, I'm sorry." "I didn't mean to make things worse." William hugged George tightly, his heart wrenching. "You did nothing wrong, George. I'll find out who's behind this." But as the boy looked up, his eyes full of trust yet scarred by hurt, William felt a chilling premonition. He stood, his gaze sweeping to the window toward the misty royal gardens. The rose bushes, drenched in darkness, stood silent like mute witnesses. Then a thought struck like lightning. The garden had surveillance cameras. That could be the key to the truth. William immediately summoned James, a former MI5 officer and trusted friend, to a secret room in Kensington's basement. In the glow of computer screens, James spoke, his voice steady as stone. "We'll check every camera in the garden, sir. But if the culprit is an insider, we're dealing with a foe more dangerous than the press." William nodded, his eyes sharp as a blade. "I don't care who it is, James. I want the truth. And I want it fast." In the darkness, the royal gardens resembled a chessboard, where the first moves of a brutal game were being played. William knew the enemy was close. Within this palace, hiding behind false smiles and poisonous whispers. Darkness enveloped Kensington Palace, with only the pale blue glow of computer screens in the secret basement room. Prince William stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the grainy footage from the royal garden's surveillance cameras. Each second passed like a pounding heartbeat, carrying both hope and fear. Beside him, James, the former MI5 officer, maneuvered the mouse with a hunter's precision, rewinding footage from the fateful afternoon when George's diary was stolen. The rose bushes in the frame swayed gently in the breeze, as if whispering the secrets they had witnessed. William clenched his fists, his nails digging into his palms. He had staked everything on these invisible eyes, hoping they would reveal the culprit who hurt his son. "Anything yet, James?" His voice was low but sharp, like a honed blade. James nodded, eyes glued to the screen. "Here, sir." Tuesday afternoon, around 3:47 p.m. He paused the footage, zooming in on a corner of the frame. A small figure appeared. George, his golden hair glinting in the sunlight, sitting on a stone bench near the large rose bush. The boy scribbled in his diary, his small shoulders hunched as if guarding a secret. Then, as he had described, Charlotte and Louis appeared, their laughter ringing out. George hurriedly stuffed the diary into his bag, locked it loosely, and ran off with his siblings, leaving the bag under a tree. William held his breath, his heart pounding. The footage slowed. Another figure entered the frame, moving with a predator's caution. A silk dress of deep green fluttered, a string of pearls gleaming in the sunlight. Unmistakably, Camilla. She paused by the bag, glancing around as if ensuring no one was watching. Then, with a swift, chilling motion, she unlocked the bag, pulled out the diary, flipped through a few pages, and smirked. A cold, triumphant smile. Camilla tucked the diary into her cloak and walked toward her private residence as if nothing had happened. William froze. Blood rushed to his head, his ears ringing as if swarmed by bees. Every suspicion, every dark premonition, was now confirmed in crystal-clear footage. Camilla, the woman he had tried to respect for his father's sake, was the mastermind. She had not only stolen George's diary, but had weaponized a child's fears to undermine his family. Pain and fury erupted in William's chest like a volcano. He turned to James, his voice trembling with restraint. "Copy this footage. Store it in the safest place, No one must know until I say so." James nodded, but his eyes betrayed concern. "Sir, confronting her. It won't be easy. She has great influence, and King Charles—" He trailed off, but William understood. Charles, though his father, was torn between family love and loyalty to Camilla. But William no longer cared. Camilla had touched his son, and now she would pay. He left the room, striding down Kensington's long corridors, where royal portraits hung like silent witnesses to history. Moonlight streamed through the windows, illuminating his face and the burning resolve in his eyes. He thought of George, of the boy's tear-reddened eyes after Camilla's mockery at dinner, and his heart tightened. "She's gone too far," William whispered to himself, his voice low like a vow. "Now she'll face me." Meanwhile, at Clarence's house, Camilla sat in her private room, unaware that her secret had been exposed by the garden's invisible eyes. She sipped her wine, her lips pressed into a confident line. In her mind, she was plotting her next steps. But she didn't know that in the shadows William held the most dangerous weapon of all: the truth. The royal gardens, with their dew-soaked roses, stood silent, as if awaiting the storm about to break. And William, with the footage in hand, was ready to make that storm a reality. Under the opulent chandelier of Clarence's house, Queen Camilla sat across from King Charles III in their private dining room, the soft golden light reflecting off the pearl necklace around her throat, like dewdrops on a spider's web. Outside, London's fog lingered, cloaking the city in gloom, as if the sky itself anticipated a storm. Camilla set down her teacup, her voice sweet but sharp as a blade. "Charles, we cannot allow George to continue damaging the royal image with his weakness. The boy needs discipline, military rigor, no room for fragility. I've drafted a formal request to the Royal Council. This must be mandatory, Charles." His eyes weary and his forehead etched with deep lines, frowned slightly. "Camilla, he's my grandson." William won't agree, but his voice lacked conviction, as if he had grown accustomed to Camilla steering the toughest decisions. Camilla smiled, a discreet but calculated expression. In her heart, she knew this move wasn't just about George. By pushing the boy into a harsh training program, she would make William appear a powerless father, unable to protect his son or lead the monarchy. The public would begin to doubt, and Camilla, portrayed as a resolute queen, would become the monarchy's sole pillar. She sipped her tea, her eyes glinting with triumph, unaware that her secret lay in William's hands. At Kensington Palace, William stood in his study, clutching the USB containing the camera footage, irrefutable evidence of Camilla's betrayal. He had watched the footage dozens of times, each viewing a fresh stab at his pride. Camilla, the woman who had stood by his father for decades, had not only stolen George's diary, but dared to weaponize a child's fears against his family. But William didn't act rashly. He knew a hasty counterattack would only let Camilla slip away like a snake. He needed her to dig deeper into her own game so he could topple her with a single blow. James entered, holding a file. "Sir, we've confirmed Camilla has submitted a proposal to the Royal Council, requesting George be placed in a military training program. She's pushing for an emergency meeting to vote." William's eyes narrowed, sharp as steel. "She thinks she can manipulate the entire council," he said, his voice low, resonating like a rumble from a chasm. "Let her be confident. I want her to think she's about to win." William turned to the window, gazing at the royal garden shrouded in darkness. The dew-soaked roses stood silent, like mute sentinels, reminding him of the moment the truth was revealed. He thought of George, of the boy's tearful eyes after Camilla's mockery at dinner. The pain burned steadily in his chest, but William kept it under control. He wouldn't let emotion override reason. "James," he said, his voice calm, but carrying the weight of an impending storm, "prepare everything for the meeting. I want the footage played at the perfect moment." In William's mind, a plan had taken shape. Not a reckless attack, but a carefully calculated move to make Camilla crumble under her own ambition. He imagined her standing before the council, confidently presenting her proposal, only to be exposed by her own betrayal. William clenched his fist, a cold smile flickering on his lips. "She touched my son," he whispered to himself. "Now she'll learn the cost." At Clarence's house, Camilla glided through the long corridor, her green silk dress fluttering like a predator's wings. She paused before a large mirror, adjusting her pearl necklace, her eyes brimming with the confidence of a queen certain of victory. She was unaware that Kensington's cameras had captured her crime, and William, with evidence in hand, was waiting to deliver the decisive blow. The royal gardens, with their dew-drenched roses, seemed to whisper of a storm approaching, where the truth could no longer be hidden. That morning, London's fog began to lift, revealing Buckingham Palace's ancient domes, where the royal council convened in a grand room adorned with gold-embroidered tapestries and portraits of past monarchs. Light from towering windows illuminated the long conference table, where council members sat rigidly, their stern faces masking private calculations. At the head, King Charles III sat in silence, his frail hands clasped, his gaze distant, as if bracing for an imminent storm. Beside him, Queen Camilla rose, her green silk dress clinging to her frame, her pearl necklace glinting like a reminder of her power. Her smile was sharp, confident, as if victory was assured. Camilla raised her document, her voice ringing out, sweet yet cutting. "Honored council members, Prince George is damaging the royal image with his weakness. An heir cannot fear the crown. I propose placing him in a special military training program. Strict discipline, no exceptions. This is not a choice, but a necessity for the throne's honor." She paused, her eyes sweeping the room, noting some members nodding in agreement. Charles bowed his head, silent, his lips pressed tight, as if wrestling internally. Camilla smiled, believing her game was nearing its end. Prince William sat across the table, his outward calm masking the fists clenched white under the table. He had anticipated Camilla's plan thanks to James's intelligence. In his pocket, the USB with the camera footage, a damning truth, felt heavy as a stone against his chest. He glanced at Kate, seated beside him, her eyes sharp but tinged with worry. William gave a subtle nod, signaling the moment had come. He would not let Camilla go further. As the council chair announced the vote, William signaled a technician in the corner. A large screen flickered to life, its pale blue glow illuminating the stunned faces of the council. Footage from the royal gardens cameras played clearly. George leaving his bag under a tree, running off with his siblings. Then Camilla appeared, her green silk dress fluttering, glancing around before opening the bag, pulling out the diary with swift, cold precision. Her triumphant smirk in the footage was like a dagger to those watching. The room fell silent. Some members gasped, whispers rising like a breeze. "Unbelievable!" a duke exclaimed, his voice trembling. Camilla froze, her eyes wide, her face paling like ash. The pearls around her neck seemed heavier, as if pulling her into an abyss. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat, leaving only panic in her eyes. William stood, his voice low but sharp as steel. "You didn't just spread lies to discredit my son. You violated a child's privacy, your own grandson. The one needing discipline isn't George, but you, Your Majesty." His words thundered, each one a hammer blow to Camilla's ambition. The room erupted, whispers turning into sharp accusations. "Unacceptable!" A duchess shouted, her face flushed with outrage. Charles looked up, his eyes filled with pain but unable to evade the truth. He gazed at Camilla, the woman who had stood by him for decades, now exposed under the harsh light of reality. Camilla bowed her head, her hands trembling, but a spark of resentment flickered in her eyes, like embers refusing to die. She knew she had lost, but in her mind, this defeat was only temporary. A new plan for revenge was already forming. The meeting room at Buckingham Palace was thick with tension, as if the ancient walls themselves trembled from the upheaval. The light from the towering windows dimmed in London's fog, casting a pall over Queen Camilla's ashen face as she stood, her trembling hands gripping the table's edge. The camera footage showing her stealing George's diary lingered in the air like an undeniable accusation. The council members whispered, their eyes shifting between shock and indignation. Some shook their heads, their voices dripping with disdain. "Unthinkable for a queen to act this way!" Prince William stood across the table, his outward calm masking the fire still burning within, a father's fury protecting his son. King Charles III, seated at the head, finally looked up. His eyes, clouded by age and the weight of the crown, met Camilla's. In that moment, time seemed to stop. Charles, torn between love for his family and loyalty to the wife who had weathered countless storms with him, faced an inescapable choice. He took a deep breath, his voice low but resonant, as if drawn from the depths of his heart. "Camilla, you've gone too far. Your actions have not only hurt George, but shaken the foundation of the monarchy. I have no choice. From now on, you are confined to Clarence House, barred from any involvement with William's family and from contact with the grandchildren." Charles's words were a blade, severing the power Camilla had wielded. The room fell silent, save for Camilla's sharp, gasping breaths. She opened her mouth to protest, but Charles's stern gaze stopped her. The pearls around her neck seemed to weigh her down, like invisible chains binding her to her defeat. Camilla bowed her head, her face flushed with humiliation, but a spark of resentment flashed in her eyes, sharp as a blade. She turned and left the room, her tall, slender figure vanishing behind the oak door, but no one doubted the storm still raging within her. At Kensington Palace, William entered George's bedroom, where the boy sat on his bed, clutching his old teddy bear. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating his face, still shadowed by the pain of Camilla's mockery. William sat beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder, his voice gentle but firm. "George, it's over. No one will hurt you again." George looked up, his eyes shimmering with hope, but tinged with hesitation. "Dad, she won't do anything else, will she?" he asked, his voice faint as a breeze. William smiled, but his eyes held a trace of vigilance. "I'll always protect you, George. I promise." He hugged the boy tightly, feeling his son's small heartbeat against his own. But as he stood, gazing out at the royal gardens, the dew-soaked roses looming like silent specters, William knew this battle wasn't truly over. Camilla, though confined, was not one to surrender. Her ambition, like a fire smoldering under ash, was only temporarily subdued. In her private room at Clarence's house, Camilla sat alone, the chandelier's dim light casting shadows on her face, now devoid of its confident smile. She gripped her wine glass, her fingers white as if trying to crush it. The darkness enveloped the room, but in her heart, a plan for revenge was quietly forming. "One day," she whispered, her voice low like a curse, "I'll take it all back." Her eyes flashed, like a wounded beast that never stops hunting. William, standing in his study, looked out at the royal gardens. The rose bushes, where it all began, stood silent as witnesses to history. He exhaled softly, but his heart remained heavy. Camilla might be punished, but William knew she wouldn't stop. He clenched his fist, his eyes burning with unwavering resolve. "She'll never touch my family again. I'll always be ready." What do you think of William's intricate plan to expose Camilla's crime? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.